Welcome back to the neighborhood, boys and girls. Our next guest is Vinnie Travalino. Vinnie, welcome to the neighborhood, my man.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So we always talk about the past and the present and the future. We always start off with the past. And you're one of the few people that I actually know a little bit about. Before we get into the present and your KW life and your team, talk a little bit about your journey and how you got into real estate, because most people have a little funky path that gets into it.
Yeah, so I mean, without going too personal,
Sure.
You know, I was younger when I got into the business, so I was about 22 years old.
Okay.
I was working construction. And you know, I ran into, which is now legal, weed, right? So I ran into some issues with that, and you know, if we're just being honest around it, you know, and I had difficulty in my childhood. I was never bad,
right?
Like I never robbed, steal, or anything like that. But you know, I was sometimes with the wrong crowd, as they would say,
which is easy to do in Franklin.
Which is it is. So you know, I found myself. Out of construction, and there was some other things going on at home, and life was just unique at the time, right? I was going through a lot, and people would always mention, oh, Vin, you know, you'd probably be really good at business. So I always wanted to get into real estate and investing in through flipping, but with construction, and you have to pass a urine test through there, and I would smoke weed. You know, I smoked back when I was 22.
Sure.
And next thing you know, I lost my job there in construction. I needed to find work. Some other things were going on. And I found my way into real estate. And one of the things that I loved about real estate was there was a lot of self-development that went into it. And being my own entrepreneur and my own business owner. And it sounded great at 22.
Yeah.
And it still sounds great at 30.
It's still pretty cool now.
I'm 30 now. So you probably asked me, I've been in the business 8 years, and I've had my fair share of ups and downs, right? So I got into it, and I struggled to pass the test because I can't sit still to study for that long. It's just something I just couldn't do.
Yeah.
Even today, my team has known me. Like, I'm usually 3 to 4 hours very hyper focused in the office, but after 3 to 4 hours, I gotta get out.
You gotta go.
I gotta go to Wawa. I gotta go somewhere. Doctors would say it's ADHD. I don't know, whatever they want to say. Whatever's fine, or just maybe too much caffeine.
Yeah. Could be either one.
Could be either one. And you know, so I get through the real estate school, and I was going through some really tough times. You know, I was racking up credit card debt. I wasn't making money. There's, again, some difficulties going on at home. And it just wasn't an ideal time in life, but I was determined. So eventually I passed the test. And still to this day, I give my kudos and credit where credit's due. I got linked up with Tom Duffy. And Tom took me under his wing, showed me the ropes, how to be a successful realtor. And if you know Tom, you know he's not easy.
No.
So you earn every dollar there. And
Tom sold me my house that I live in now, for sure.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
And he's you have to respect his business. And that's how the journey got started. And I found myself into real estate. Now, at the time, before I had gotten in trouble and you know, had to make a little bit of a path change, I was doing music.
Okay.
Music was my passion. I was playing out live. Just music wasn't also going to pay the bills at the time. You know, so it was paying bills at the time, and also when I had the other job, it was fine to do. But I lost that job, and I figured it was finally time for me to do something to where, you know, what really hit me was when I was fired.
It's a tough thing to get fired, man. You're a prideful person. It's tough.
Yeah. And I think it was that moment. I just discovered it now in this interview. It was when I got fired. I really sat there and I'm like, security is a lie.
Yeah.
Like, a stable job it's a lie.
It ain't the 40s and 50s anymore, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand some people go through their careers 10, 20 years. They work a good, stable job. But once I was a hard worker. I was a good worker. I was usually maybe 10 to 15 minutes late sometimes, but I would get there and I'd work a little late to make up for it, right?
Yeah.
And, I think once that happened, I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm going to suffer, it's going to be because I made some dumb decisions or I just didn't work hard enough, and I'm going to go work harder.
Gotcha.
So that's where a lot of the fuel, and I just discovered that here, but when I really think about it, yeah.
That's how it was? Awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you, especially it's tough as a younger age. I know. As a 22, 23-year-old person, how did you get business and not only that, get people to trust you with it's not a pair of shoes. You're talking about a house. You're talking about a huge investment, a huge thing. How did you get people to trust you and hire you as a realtor?
I think for me, as you get to know me or anybody gets to know me, I'm very caring. And
Right.
I care. I care about what people think. I care about what people do. I care about their successes. So that was definitely something I had in my favor. And I knew I needed to be with somebody that was either number one or close or with a good reputation. And Tom was one of those, right? And I interviewed several teams. I knew early on I needed to have backing because, like you just said, I might be the most caring guy in the world, and you can trust me with anything that you handed me. That does not mean I knew what to do to get you the home. And to get you at a right price and all of that. So I did realize early on, I was like, I had to get with a team. I needed to be with somebody that I could mentor and look up to, and I still look up to Tom. Whether he knows it or doesn't know it, he's like the father in real estate, right? To me, to how I look up to how he does things and how he did things. And I think if you're 22 or 20 or you're younger or just getting into business, I think you need to find your mentor, somebody that you can see do it at a high level and something that you can appreciate and respect. So I didn't expect people to trust me. I believe trust is earned. So I knew every person I met, I had to prove I was going to do what I said I would do to them.
Okay. Now, did you have any other family member or anyone else who was in real estate? Like, did an uncle or anyone else? Or was this kind of like you were the trailblazer in the Travalino family? All right.
It was all me. It was just even tougher.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of times, and I thank God for my father. I really do. And my mother, too. My father was very supportive, even in things that he didn't understand or know. Because my father was in real estate. He was brick and block layer for 25 years with Tambor Brothers, and I watched it firsthand to where when he was 55 and Tambor Brothers went out of business, that he went back to the hall, and then what it's like trying to be a 55-year-old laborer. You're trying to hang with 20, 25-year-old guys. Can't do it. Like, my dad would be like them sending my dad out there to dig holes with me. Like, my dad's a good in shape guy. So, when I saw all of that going on, I think it. Tell me the question again. I got on a rant.
Was anyone else in your family there to mentor you?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So my dad didn't have that experience, and I couldn't go to him for it, but he supported me nonetheless. And I got a little side rant, so that's what happens here. Okay, I get back. You just got to bring me back.
Bring it back in.
Just bring me back in.
Yeah.
And when he would always support me, and I had nobody to lean on. Now, I had some friends and some people in my sphere that were, around me. There was one team in particular, we laugh now, because they had the opportunity. He had the opportunities with Berkshire Hathaway. He knows who he is. So he had the opportunity to have me on his team, and they actually denied me.
Okay.
And they chose somebody else over me, and he was in the business for 3 weeks, and here I am. So, so
8
that
years
was,
later.
Yeah. Now, when that was kind of the only person I had to lean on. So then once I lost that, I didn't know what I was doing. And again, 22-year-old guy, and I have some things I'm facing in my future and trying to get everything together and fix things. And my father just got laid off, right? And he's trying to find work. And it's hard in the union when he was with Tambor for 20 years. So it's not like he had multiple companies that he was, accustomed to, and they could have got him in to be a foreman because he was a foreman. And foremans, you tell them what to do rather than you out there with the shovel. Sure. So, there was just tough times going on at home, and I had no guidance. And I thank God, I met Craig Sherlock, who was he was Andy Mack at KW at the time, and he brought me in and got me in with Tom, and that was pretty much it. I didn't have a whole lot of people to lean on. One thing I was committed to was learning. Okay. Like, I was committed. I've taken, if you've heard of Bold.
Yeah, sure.
Taking it 10 times.
Yeah.
And I'll take it 11. Right. I've gone to all the family reunions, and I'm committed to the new ways, to the new markets, to new perspectives. And I never act like I know it. I still act as if I'm that 22-year-old guy. Right. And I think that's something that helps me.
Remaining teachable is definitely a skill that a lot of people don't have. You know what I mean? Especially because you've had reasonable success. You know what I mean?
Right.
You may not be number one, but you're definitely closing transactions and doing well for yourself.
Yeah.
Most people get a little smell of themselves and they'll have a 6 transaction month or an 8 transaction month and they'll be like, oh, I invented real estate. I'm the way to go. And it's very tough to have success but still remain teachable, you know?
Right. And, you know, there was a lot of other driving factors to me proving something of myself that I think a lot of people can relate to. Again, it's not, I don't want to get too into the personal. I think it will keep it a little bit more helpful and just some of the scenes. But, you know, I think no matter where you're at in life, you have to understand if you want to get somewhere, it's up to you. Like you got to work for it.
Yeah, it's funny. I listened to a bunch of self-development and all this other stuff, and Andy Frisella was talking about, you know, it's always you. Yeah, you might have had the worst upbringing. You might have been abused. You might have had all this stuff, but the reality is, in the moment, it's your fault. It's your fault. You have the choice. You can do or you can not do, and if you don't do, it's your fault, you know. Yeah. So it's a wonderful perspective to have, but a lot of people don't have the perspective. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to blame this and that and blame this and that, and all that stuff could be true. But the reality is, in this moment, if you physically are capable of doing something and you don't do it, it's your fault.
It's your fault.
You know?
And that's how I live.
That's how it is, man.
And it took me a while to get to there until you get into trouble and, you know, you start seeing things different. And then when you I always say you can't deny effort over time.
Yeah.
It's just something you just can't. It's a law in my mind. You can't beat it. You have to put in a certain amount of effort over a certain amount of time. There's no shortcut.
Yeah.
And I think I learned that a lot my last 2 years in business.
Yeah, and we were talking a little bit beforehand, like, especially in this business, you can be skilled. You can, like, I've learned all the technical training courses and taken all these sales classes with all the different trial closes and all this stuff. But the reality is 80% of the results are based on effort. You know, if you find someone who hammers 8 hours a day, cold calls, making things, doing this, you will very rarely find somebody who does 4 hours and outproduces them, you know?
That's exactly right.
And that's hard to teach. You're the same age as my daughter. So when I think of younger people, I think of you and my daughter, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And most of the time, I don't know what it is, but most of the people my daughter's age, I have a bunch of daughters, but my oldest daughter's age are not really that work ethic type style of person. They're more like, tell me how to get the most results out of the least amount of work. How do I do, they have fancy words for it now, like optimizing and how to do it, but really what they're saying is, how can I get your results without doing your work? And
you can't.
No.
You can't.
And it's a hard lesson to learn, and I hear you talk about it, and that's a really good lesson to have. And most times when you have somebody that learns that lesson, they have a father who was a union worker, a bricklayer, something like that, where you got that example and you got to see, like, that's how it is, man.
Yeah, you're
grinding.
Now, and on the flip side, he's got his pension, he's got annuity. It took time to kick in, but now, you know, he's got a nice life. And that's where I talk to people, too, when they get into business. Like, and I'm 30. Yeah. So I've still got another 25 until I am 55. I got a long time to go.
Yeah.
Now it's going to go by fast. I know that too. It's one of those weird phenomenons. But, you know, when I sit back and I talk to people that, you know, because let me paint a little picture of what's happened over the last 2 years. Is I went from no team, individual agent, to having 16 agents on my team in 1 year. Too fast, by the way. You know, without having the right structure. And I learned lessons in 2 years that whether I jumped now or I jumped at 40, I would have had to learn either way. Now, who's to say, oh, well, I'm 40, maybe you had more experience. I'm the type of person that you got to jump and work it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I read all the guru books. I've read all the MREA. I knew the right way to do it, and I still did it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I overextended. Now, clients and customers were all still taken care of. But my time and, I guess, my joy for the business got smoked. I was working 12 hours, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, solving problem after problem after problem to people that would be short-term committed.
Yeah. You were more vested in it.
I was more vested than they were vested in their own success.
Yeah.
And when that hit me, I really, it's probably about the last 6 to 8 months, I've really started realizing I have to rebuild. We had to let a lot go, a lot also left, and it was good. Everything is good now, and I took a lot of bumps and bruises.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot. I'm just being honest.
That's the best teacher.
Like, I'm in that phase.
Yeah.
You know, where like I look to where like, all right, when I'm 40 and I have another 20 years under, or 10 years under my belt. How about that? When I have another 10 years under my belt and I'm at 8 in right now, so I'll be at 18. Then I look back and I'm like, that's why I needed to learn that so I can get those projections back on points. And it's like every time you hear about a success story and you look at the Tom Duffys, the John Clydys, the Dan Mosses, the Tim Kerrs, Josh Bears. When you look at them guys, they've got years of experience, and they've all, if you talk to them at some point, had their hiccup years or their challenge years.
There's no substitution for that experience, man. Like, it just is what it is. And you can read books about it, and you can watch movies, and you can take courses, and you can do, but it's nothing like practical experience and application. You can't hypothesize failure. You can't hypothesize banging your head against the wall and learning how to get over that hurdle, and that's
you can't deny
you took it in the early years, which is great, because I'm telling you, man, it sucks taking it later on for sure. Well,
that's why I was like, you know what, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it now. I had no kids, I wasn't married, anything like that. I'm like, if I'm gonna take a jump, I'm gonna do it now. At the time I was 28, I was living home alone, so I'm like, you know what? Let me jump for it. Now look, life's beating me up early on. Like I said, at 18 and 22, I was smoking weed and, just hanging out with the wrong crowd. Not doing bad things, just it wasn't legal back then. I know now you can go to a store and get it if you want it. But, back then you couldn't. And we still liked it. And we were young and dumb. And, I've learned life lessons early on and then business lessons early on. And, I just go for it.
Nice.
So I do things.
All right, we're going to finish up with a personal question for you. So I know you have music, so it's kind of cheating, but I really do want to know the music thing. So the music question is, Friday night, you can have any band, any performer, any live or dead, history of it could be, Ella Fitzgerald to whoever else. Somebody's going to come to your house and they're going to play 2 songs in your backyard. Yeah. Who's the band or performer going to be, and what are the 2 songs? Luke Combs?
Luke Combs.
And what are the 2 songs you want to hear him play?
I want to hear him, Even Though I'm Leaving.
Okay.
And
I'm going to act like I know what that is.
Yeah, You Found Yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Luke Combs has been one of the biggest impressions in my late music years. So I started picking up the guitar around 19. I was always in sports. I had nothing to do. That's why I got in a lot of trouble too, because I had too much time on my hands to just do dumb things. So that's why my calendar stays packed, right? But I picked up music. My mom's battled with alcohol my whole life that I can pretty much remember. After she had breast cancer, I was probably about 10. So before we go too down the sob story, I picked up the guitar as just like a way for me to put my feelings, because I didn't always know how to talk about them, right? So I picked up music, and then we would sit out by fires, and I just loved watching my buddy entertain and hold the energy of the room and just that bonfire. So then it just started, and there's always been a dream in me to be a performer, but it came a little bit later, and that's where I was on the track. I was doing music full time. I was playing. I was doing open mics down at Kavanaugh's, and then my music dream got derailed, and this is why I always preach to trust God's timing, because I really believe that if I'd have had my music success too early on in my life, it wouldn't have been well for me.
No, it wouldn't.
I don't think I really don't. I just know the type of person I am. Again, I'm a good guy, but I'd like to do rebel things sometimes, and just getting hooked up with that party and that rock star and that lifestyle. The derail, I still continued to practice. I put in the work behind closed doors, and when I started music back up, I felt like I was bringing back a chapter I always preach to everybody to do. Chase your dream. I love real estate. It gives me fulfillment. It makes me money, right? And money's not everything, but it's important.
Sure.
Right? And I have this passion for solving problems. So real estate gives me that fulfillment, like I'm solving problems.
Nice.
To where music just gives me this outlet. I even have the different stage name, Vinnie Trav. It's like when I'm on that stage, it's just like I'm young again.
It's your alter ego,
yeah, and I'm just out there. It's just I'm having fun. I'm cursing. It's the whole 9 yards, and that's why and that hit me to where I always tell everybody, "Oh, you got to chase your dream," and I'm like, but I wasn't chasing mine. I was still there. It's God's timing. I had to prep. I was still working on it, but be patient sometimes when things just aren't unfolding. And you know what the funny part is I have these visions of selling out 50,000 people in the stands.
Yeah.
I do. I could see it, smell it, feel it. And I also enjoy when there's 2 or 3 people in the bar that are seeing my original and singing along in it.
Right.
And I think that's why I relate so much to Luke Combs, to where it's like through his success and just who he is, his songs, it's just like, he's just good, man. It connects.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Vinny, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course, man.
Awesome. And we'll be back with the next guest on Mr. Mortgage's Neighborhood.